You know what I just realized? Sundays are really good days, not just for anime fans, but live action fans as well, because I mean look, Boku no Hero Academia, early morning, so you have something to wake up to early in the morning to watch something very good, Boku no Hero Academia. In the middle of the day, ReZero, which I'm currently going to be discussing about, ReZero in the middle of the day, a very good series. Game of Thrones late at night, along with Fear of the Walking Dead, two other really great series. Sundays are really good days. I have to say, when it comes to this month, Sundays have been one of the days I've looked forward to the most every single week. So anyways, getting off of that, let's talk about ReZero, episode 6. So, one of the most shocking things about this episode is that Subaru did not die. Yeah, he did not die in this episode. Now, I'm not going to say he's probably not going to die at the beginning of next week's episode, but he didn't die in this episode, which is a huge improvement compared to what has happened in recent episodes of ReZero. Because, I mean, usually in every single episode of ReZero, he always dies right at the end of the episode, and then the episode cliffhangers. It's kind of been like a repeating pattern. But with this week's episode, it doesn't do that. Subaru actually survives, he's alive, and now he figured out who is actually killing him. He actually saw the person that's been killing him every single week. He realized who's doing it, and he comes to find out it's actually one of the twins, the sisters. And I guess I have my suspicion about it, but the main thing was I expected it to be something else. It was kind of predictable, so I expected it to be something else, but I guess at the end of the day, I should have expected as much, it being one of the sisters. But the main thing I want to talk about is the kind of presentation of this episode and what it was trying to set up and hint at. So, last week we were already getting hints that the sisters might be some form of demons. That was already hinted at in last week's episode with the entire conversation. Well, with this episode, once again, we have more setup going on with demons or ogres in general. We get a folktale or a story being told by Subaru. He's telling the story from his homeland, Japan. He's talking about a red ogre and a blue ogre. And this is actually not the first time I've ever heard this story. To do a little bit of a fun fact for all of you, I actually heard about this story in Ore Monogatari. It was a romance series last year. Some of you may have watched it, some of you may not have watched it. It was a very good romance series that stood out last year when it came to anime. And if you have yet to ever watch Ore Monogatari, and if you love romance and slice of life, go watch it. It's by Studio Madhouse as well. There was actually a segment in Ore Monogatari that focused on this story, this fairy tale about the red ogre and blue ogre. And amongst this story, you notice that one of the sisters, Rim, she got very interested in the story, to where at the point of where you're guessing most likely she's probably an ogre. She's definitely either an ogre or she's a demon. But regardless though, with last week's episode already hinting that she was some form of demon, to this week's episode showing her interest in ogres and stuff and the way she got kind of connected with it, it kind of lets us know that she is definitely not human, but also most likely something similar to an ogre or a demon. So seeing her kind of be the main focus or maybe the killer in this, part of the story, I guess it makes a little bit of sense. It does. But the main question is for what purpose and what is really going on here and why is Subaru being killed? That's the main thing we need to look at right now. Because Subaru, as we knew, he was getting along with the sisters quite well in the previous flashbacks, or, the previous, say points he had. He was getting along with them. It seemed like everything was going nice and fine. And, I mean, he already left the mansion. It's not like he had any information to give. They probably were watching him, too. And judging by the reaction of the twin sisters of how they didn't want to communicate or talk with him at all, it's probably because he chose to be a house guest instead of someone that was actually working with him. Because, they didn't want to communicate with him and give him any information that might be suspicious. That's what I assumed was going on at the beginning of this episode. For instance, how he changed his, decision instead of being like a house guest from being like a worker there. That's probably why they were very distant early on and why they were not friendly with him. But then as they slowly started to open up with him towards the later parts of the time when he was about to leave, then this happens at the end of the episode. And it makes me question, okay, so they were distant with him. They didn't really reveal anything. But then they come around and try to kill him, or at the very least one of the sisters tries to kill him. And then this raises many questions right now. Is this sister, Rim, is she doing this without the orders of the master of the house, the count, or is she doing this on her own will? Like, is she doing this without being ordered to? That's the main thing. Is she working for someone else that we're unaware of? Because we did hear about the red ogre and the blue ogre story in this episode of ReZero, so maybe since she might be the Red Ogre, maybe there's more to the story that we need to look into. Maybe the Red Ogre is actually indeed bad and not necessarily good, and actually deserves to be people being scared of the Red Ogre. For instance, Rim is the Red Ogre. So that's what I think is going on here. But besides that, however, overall, the episode had some really good comedy moments throughout the episode. I mean, getting to see Puck and Subaru's interactions with each other, seeing how Puck was just being all cheery alongside of Subaru, it was just so cute. It was very adorable and cute. And also, there was a line that was just straight up savage in this episode that I feel so bad for Subaru. And he took it quite well, but I feel so sorry for him because that really just fucking burnt his ass. So, at the beginning of the episode, he's pretty much talking about Amelia Tan, you know, putting on the Tan at the end of her name. And it's like, when did we ever become this close to use pet names? Like, she says that, like, when have we ever been this close, or ever gotten this close, or had the time? And that right there was a fucking burn, because it's sad in a way, because we know that Subaru has died multiple times to try to save her, help her out, and of course she doesn't remember that. She only remembers that certain point that, you know, his little segment of life he's managed to make it through, and she doesn't remember the other points that he's constantly died to try to save her, so obviously she wouldn't be that close to him like he is to her. But it's a burn, but it's sad to see that these actions that Subaru does before he dies doesn't carry over, and they are unaware of it, and it really makes you really sad to see that all the things he's done for them, they kind of don't even know about it. It's kind of tragic in a way. But that's about it when it comes to this episode of ReZero. A very good episode. I enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think is going to happen next week? Do you believe that, you know, Subaru is going to die and get reset again? What do you think is going to happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please be safe. Chibi out.